So hey guys, this is Mayank, founder of swiftlyrush.com. Welcome you to the 14th episode of the Mayank Show. And in this episode, we are going to talk to Adam Rush. Adam is an iOS engineer for last more than 10 years. He has a huge experience in this industry. He's popularly known in the community for organizing this amazing conference called Swift Leads. I hope you must have heard this name before. If you haven't, then I will definitely recommend you to check out this conference. The other thing that Adam is popular about is his technical writing. He has been working with raywenderlich.com for quite some time. He has his personal blog as well with the name Swiftly Rush. So you know already that he manages to do a lot of things. So we'll be talking about some time management things, some things iOS, also his personal experiences in this space of iOS, what he has learned in this past 1 decade, how he keeps himself going all the time, why he is so curious about all the things, and we'll try to dig deeper into a lot of other good things as well. So I'll not take much of your time now and run the intro. So Adam, would you please like to tell us audience about yourself? And you have been an iOS developer and into technology for last more than 10 years, right? So can you take us through these 10 years, how you spent them, what you have learned, what have been your experiences and whatnot?
Yeah, by the way, I'm super excited to be on your the Mayank Show. It's just super awesome.
Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, so, 10 plus years dedicated solely to iOS, which now is making me seem really old, which I am. I'm getting old. But essentially, yeah, I'm basically self-taught. So I started learning iOS development 11, 12 years ago. Started building my own apps and really kind of just delving into content online and really absorbing and learning. And then I just managed to land my first job doing mobile testing. I was testing apps. I was fixing bugs. I was doing bits of everything, really. And then essentially just went on from there and got the next job and kept on learning and kept on building more and more connections with people, getting more different jobs, and kept on going there and ended up being a consultant in the UK as an iOS developer, which was super amazing for me because I was able to move around very quickly to different companies and really get a grasp of all the different ways that people were building iOS apps, you know, from design patterns to architecture to coding styles and all this good stuff. And I was very lucky that these companies were really good companies. So they had good engineering teams. So I worked at like Emirates, Moshi Monsters, Audi, the kind of list goes on. And yeah, you know, working with all these different engineers with different styles, I was just kind of learning and really developed from there. And, you know, that kept on, it for sure kept me busy because I was traveling a lot, but it was the learning aspect of it that really was really awesome for me because I just kept on learning and learning.
Right. So what has been this one thing that kept you driven about learning? Because sometimes I've seen even in my group itself that people come to a stage where they feel like, okay, now we are earning well, now we know some of the things like at an intermediate level, now we don't need to polish our skills, right? We don't need to go further and expand our learning horizon. What has been your take on that? How did you keep yourself going, and what do you think about continuous learning? Because I'm a follower of always learning something,
Mhm.
um, no matter how much you know already. What do you think about this?
I think it's really interesting because it's one of those mindsets that you can't really teach people. You know, it's you've kind of either got that mindset or you don't. And for some people, they do generally struggle to just keep afresh and keep absorbing new things that are coming out. You know, some people are just happy to turn up and write some code and go home. You know, so it's a it's a really difficult mindset to teach. You can say it as much as you want, you know, keep on learning, check out this new content, but some people just generally don't like to do that. For me personally, I I have probably quite a unique brain, if there is some sort, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm just super curious. I'm crazily inquisitive. I mean, my brother, the reason I got into iOS development 12 years ago was because my brother had an iPhone 3G and I was super
Okay.
jealous. I was like, that phone is the best phone ever. Um, but I wasn't telling him. I was super stubborn. I was like, oh, it's a terrible phone. I would never have one of those. But like deep down, I was like, I want one of those
I
phones.
want this. Yeah.
And I was super lucky because my parents bought me one. And then before I knew it, I was looking into Xcode and what are these apps? How are they built? What's the language behind them? And I was just super, super inquisitive. And that's, as I've looked back over my career, I've thought, well, actually, that's the reason why I've kept on learning, because I'm just super inquisitive. If I see something, I'm like, how is that built?
Ah,
Can I take it apart? Can I just see how they've done that? And that's kind of how my brain works.
I think that's a habit that we build up over time where we feel like whatever new piece of technology we see, we try to find the reason behind that, right? I think sometimes that this is a blanket statement where I think every developer thinks in this way. They try to figure out what is going behind the scenes. Even for any other new technology, also you have been seeing these Web3 things coming up on Twitter, and it's booming currently, right? Even with that, I
Mhm.
try to see what all languages they are using, what all protocols are there. Maybe I don't get it in the first go, but I still try to look into that just because I am curious about what is this, right?
Yeah.
To say the least, obviously I would be looking for any iOS application as well. Why something new is happening in that, I will try to figure out which kit they are using, what kind of okay, there is certain level where we cannot see through some things, like we cannot get to know what their networking layer looks like by just looking at the application, but we can definitely check out what kind of third party services maybe they are using, what kind of things they have built in house, and all of those things. What
Hmm.
kind of advice would you give to anyone who wants to learn iOS development in the very beginning? Because your reason was simple and it was interesting as well. You found this iPhone with your brother and you thought that, okay, I want this piece of, something good. And then you tried to look into this space. But these days it is more of like a domain which people find very attractive because they know it has a better career options and whatnot. What kind of advice would you give to them, they who are not that driven about the technology itself, right? They are just learning to make their careers successful.
Yeah. I think we've got to do better at getting more and more people into the industry, whether that's iOS, whether that's Android, or programming in general,
Yeah.
because there's a clear shortage of people doing it. So, so for starters, we need to get better at encouraging more and more people, and I think we are getting better, especially in the iOS industry. I mean, we've only got to look at the amount of content that's available on the internet is incredible, right? I mean,
True.
the fact that you're doing this podcast is is shown with the community, and us here doing this now is a drop in the ocean in terms of the amount of content that's available.
True.
So I think we're getting better because a lot of it is for free. I mean, I could go onto YouTube now and search how do I build a Swift iOS app, and there's
Right.
probably 10,000 videos available all
True.
for free. And so, but when I go back 10 years ago, when I was making those searches, we had Stack Overflow for sure was the biggest question and answer website, but
Right.
there wasn't a huge amount of um, content available
Resources.
because
Okay.
it was still early days. It was still very new. And
Right.
if you did find some content, whether it was reliable or not was questionable. So when I look back over a decade, now
Right.
is so vibrant. We're talking about how do we encourage more women, how do we get more diversity in the community, how do we do all of these like real challenges to solve. But back then it was how do I add an UI navigation bar, you know,
Right.
which
Right.
was now it's like such a simple thing that there's so much content available for that. Whereas now we're like
Mm.
tackling these bigger industry challenges to gain more people, more talent, just joining the industry. So I think it's really exciting for people now, as well with Swift. Swift is such an amazing language to start learning with. Of course, we've now got Swift UI, which is super awesome as well. So we've evolved into a place where it's just becoming better for people to join the industry, I would say. So I think it's looking really bright in terms of attracting new people.
Yeah. And provided the year in which you started working in this space of iOS development, I know you must be an Objective C expert. How was the transition for you when Swift was introduced and you have to switch over to that language? How was that for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was an Objective-C expert either. I don't think I don't actually know anyone who would say they were an expert in Objective-C.
I'm saying that with respect to my knowledge because I know
Yeah.
zero
I know.
Objective C.
I'm just joking. I think so. In terms of Objective-C, when Swift was announced, I was very much in the camp of I don't like it.
Mhm.
And I didn't like it because of the change, because I was self-taught. I'd spent hours, days, weeks,
Right.
months of learning Objective-C. And then for somebody to stand on stage and go, hey, but we're not going to do Objective-C anymore. We're going to do this new Swift language. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I've spent all
What?
of this time learning,
Right.
and we're now transitioning to a new language. So I was shocked. I was like, no, it's a disaster. We're going to use Objective-C. And that attitude, that mental state lasted, I would say, probably 6 months to a year, because where I was working was, of course, Objective-C.
Right.
And then it kind of set in when raywenderlich.com said, by the way, all new content is Swift only. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay. That's an interesting
Now
move.
I'll have to
And
rethink.
I'm gonna have to actually do this. And and then of course, I basically matured a little bit in my thinking and thought, well, actually, let's think about this carefully and where it's heading. Let's actually have a look at the language and how it's evolving. And then in
Right.
my head, I was like, yeah, this is fine, because what I realized is all the stuff I'd learned over that period of time was
Mhm.
completely transferable to the Swift days. Because essentially, I
Okay.
mean, the only thing that changed was the syntax for me. I
Right.
was still tapping into the UI kit framework. I was still tapping into table views and everything else. So all of that was the same. Um,
Okay.
electricity shortage there.
I don't know what's happening today.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's fine. We're having technical issues across both sides.
Yeah, a lot. Well, yeah.
so so a lot of
Yeah,
it was
you go ahead.
transferable, from Objective-C to Swift. It was just syntax, and it wasn't anything to be worried about. But it took me some time to get used to that.
Hmm. How did you learn Objective C in the first place? Because you said just now that it was very hard to find any resource to learn it. Even I think not just learning about it, maybe learning was not that typical. Solving bugs, how did you manage to do that at that point of time? Because today you find everything is available, be it on Stack Overflow or on any other resource.
Yeah,
But how about that time when you were learning Objective C at the same time dealing with bugs, which are obviously coming in Objective C? How was that
yeah.
time for you?
Difficult. uh,
That was quite
it
short.
was it was it was simply trial and error all the time. Just keep doing it, and if you hit a problem and you can't find the solution, just keep at it. I mean, I remember spending hours trying to figure out one issue. It would literally
Okay.
keep me up at night, because in my head I was
Wow.
thinking, I have to solve this issue. I must solve this problem, and it'd just keep me up at night. And then I'd wake up and get back on it, and I'd end up fixing the issue, and then I'd learn it. I'd learn what I just been through. So what
Right.
would be now a simple task, back then was like unheard of. How
True.
how do I rename the back button of a UI navigation bar? I mean, that was a nightmare. It still is a nightmare.
True. That's true. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was trial and error, really. And I also had quite a good like social circle in terms of other people building apps and learning. I remember there was a local meetup as well in my local city that was
Mm-hmm.
for iOS development. I mean, we only used to get maybe 5 to 10 people come, attend, but
Okay.
still, it was nice to have a circle of people that was kind of doing the same as I was.
So did you used to go to these meetups and ask your doubts, or maybe talk about certain topics in which you were confused? Like how were the meetups then and versus now? What has changed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say nothing has changed other than the content. I
Mm-hmm.
think when you go to even a meetup now, the content is always super awesome.
Right.
They're just so rich in content. I would say the expectation of the quality of content has gone up considerably over time.
Right.
So I would only say that because even some of the people I was meeting then, I still see now uh, going to meetups or going to conferences.
Right.
So it's still very much the same going on. Just the content is very much mature than it was, back then.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What would be the best resources today that you would suggest anyone to learn from? Be it any blog site, be it any YouTube channel, be it Apple's documentation itself. What would be like those two, three resources according to you from where people can learn?
So it's funny you mentioned the Apple documentation because I think I mean, don't get me wrong, there is always room for improvement in many
Right.
areas of anyone's work, right? Even my articles, there'll be scope for
True.
improvement. But I think the Apple documentation are completely underestimated. I don't think people go there enough in terms of to find the answer because
Mhm.
that is the API that you're using. Often we're
Right.
very quick to just Google, what is table view reload data. I don't know why table view is in my head, by the way, but I keep mentioning navigation bar and table view. Um, but yeah, we're very quick to kind of Google something.
Okay.
But actually, if we were to go into the documentation of that API, there's so much kind of small little snippets of information that could be super useful. Like, don't
True.
call this in a dispatch queue, for example, or don't call
Right.
this asynchronously, or whatever it might be, which wouldn't be the answer on Stack Overflow. It would be just do
Right.
this. So I would say the Apple documentation are completely underused. I think people should use them more, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. Other than that, there is so much incredible content out there. I mean, Antoine Vanderlee, Swiftly, Donny Walls, Paul Hudson is just constantly pumping out great content. Raywenderlich.com, of course, I've been writing there and doing books for 5+ years. Always very good content, in my opinion. And
Right.
even, if you were to check out my newsletter, I'm curating so much good content, even just from people who are just like, "Do you know what? I'm going to write a blog about this. I've only written 5 blogs ever. I'm just going to write a blog, and it is incredible.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
an incredible blog. So there's just so much super content out there. It's so nice to see.
Nice. You talked about Ray Wenderlich as well. You have had association with Ray Wenderlich for a long time now, right? But I don't know, like people know about this a lot or not. But today we can talk about this, I believe. So, what have been your association with Ray Wenderlich in the first place? Would you like to tell us about that? And how did it all started? Why did you start that?
Yeah. So raywenderlich.com was a great resource bank for me when I was learning. It was always a place where I ended up dropping onto. If I search for
Hmm.
something, you'd always see a Raywenderlich article going back
Okay.
all those years. So I was always around on the site, and one day I kind of saw this social media post from Ray saying, "Hey, we're looking for someone to do a weekly column interviewing other developers." And I thought, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I could do that." And I remember messaging him, just being like, "I'm never going to get this. I'll just see what happens." And then I got the job, and I was essentially writing a weekly developer interview blog, and I did maybe 10 to 15 weeks of that. And then essentially Ray said, "Really like your content. Do you want to join the iOS team on raywenderlich.com?" I was like, "Of course I do." So I joined the iOS team, and then I was actually pumping out the tutorials. I started doing the books. I've worked on two books over the period of time there. I've also done videos as well. So I've done some kind of paid screencasts as well. So it just kind of spiraled. I ended up doing more and more. And yeah, people don't really know because I never really published that, or I'd never really promoted it. I was never very active on Twitter or any other social media. So I'd kind of publish all this content, and nobody really knew it was there, unless, of course, you was just on the raywenderlich.com site.
True.
So this year was an ambition of mine to kind of do a little bit more for me. To what's behind me, So that's where my own website came about, and that's where I sort of thought I need my own blog, my own space, just to write some articles, some content, and really share it with people. And then I started the newsletter, and I thought that's a great idea to kind of curate all the different content. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, is just kind of publishing, weekly articles about.
So are you still working with Ray Wenderlich as a technical writer along with this?
So I'm still at raywenderlich.com, but my amount of content has dropped. So my blog has gone like that, and raywenderlich.com has gone a little bit like that for now. Just while I kind of build up my site and build up the content and all of this good stuff.
So how do you manage all of this? Like, you have been associated with Ray Wenderlich, you have started your own blog, you manage a big conference as well once in a year, and then you have a full-time job, right? Yeah. So the question is, how do you manage to do all of these things? How do you get the time?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I often wonder this myself sometimes. I've just got very good at, in my head, knowing what the priority is, what I need to work on, where I need to focus my time. So, for example, Swift Leads, the conference, it's kind of, there's things I need to do throughout the year. But of course, it's not until I get to 2 months, 3 months before where the workload, seriously ramps up for that conference. So all I do is I kind of map my time accordingly. Like Monday, for example, is article day. So that's the day I always write a new article. So without fail, that's new article day. And then
let me make some notes by the side.
So I have these like mental blocks in my head where I know what needs doing at what point. I mean, for example, a Friday is a newsletter publishing day, but all of the content that I've curated, I will digest on a Wednesday. So I'll curate all the links that I like throughout the past week. And then on a Wednesday, I'll go through the articles, I digest it, see if I like it. If I do, it'll go into the newsletter, and then the Friday it gets published out. So I've got these like mental blocks where I know what needs to be done.
Wow. So do you have a proper schedule written somewhere, or it is in your mind itself?
Very much in my mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow,
that's again awesome.
It's a digital schedule, and it often goes wrong. I often forget stuff.
Yeah, I think that's also expected. We are not robots, right? So obviously that would happen. But I really like the time management strategy that you have in place. I thought maybe you have a full-fledged schedule for the week, just like you mentioned. On Monday I try to write an article, and then on Wednesday I try to look out for all those other which I have curated. So I thought maybe you have written it somewhere as a schedule of your.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've got my company schedule. So, of course, I've got a day job, and
Right.
I do have quite a lot of meetings. I line manage and mentor engineers as well. So I have catch ups with those quite regular. So I do have a calendar that has meetings, booked in. But all of my kind of off work stuff, if you like, the
Mm-hmm.
articles and podcasts and everything else, that's kind of a mental block, and I'll fit it in whenever I've got time. Like, for example, today is article day. I've not done it yet. It's like 5 p.m. here. I'll
Wow.
I'll probably do that like a bit later on. Whereas normally I would have done that by now. Like normally I'll
Right.
do it during my lunch break or during the morning, but I'll just kind of fit it in when I can.
Got it. I was about to ask you one question that I just forgot while while listening to you.
Okay.
Uh, yep. So I was saying that in these last 10 years, what has changed for you as an iOS engineer? You said that now that you have a full-time job, obviously, but your role must have changed with time, right?
Hmm.
You have been a principal iOS engineer as well
Hmm.
recently, right? Currently, you are a technical director, if I'm not wrong,
Hmm.
at
Yeah.
GetStream. So, like these are just two roles which I have just mentioned, but it has been a more than 10-year long journey. So,
Hmm.
what kind of transitions did you find over this journey when you started off just as a junior iOS developer, then you transitioned into a senior one? Then, like, how did all went?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I think levels in software engineering have been around for some time, but when I look back 10 years ago, it wasn't a focus really. People, especially in the iOS industry, people just didn't care. It was like, I'm just building apps. Like this is what I love
Right,
doing. That's my
right,
opinion. And then as the industry's matured and matured and matured, of course, people are now thinking, well, I've been doing an engineering role for 5 years, 6 years. What next? Like, what is next for me? And I think that's
right,
become more super important, especially now we're in this new era where you've got people who's done a decade in this industry. Whereas when
right.
I joined, you only had people doing it for 1 year, for example.
Hmm.
So now it's becoming more and more important about, what is the progression, what is the route next in my career. So my career predominantly was just iOS developer, I would say, for 6 years.
Okay.
And then it wasn't then until it was like, oh, you're a senior iOS developer. It's like,
Uh
oh,
huh.
cool. Okay.
Wow.
It was like,
New
what,
title.
what, what is, what is this? And it wasn't really that important. I've never been, that I've never been one to really worry or think too hard about titles. It's just never been
Right.
important to me.
Okay.
And then I did that for some time. And then, yeah, when I worked for Emirates in Dubai, I was I got the title principal engineer, and
Mhm.
it was very much like, okay, well, this is
What is
interesting.
principal
And
engineer? Yeah.
what is principal engineer? And that's when I sort of started taking a step back and doing a bit more research. What are other principal engineers doing? Like, what is the role? Do I advocate more in the technology space? Should I be doing more mentoring? What is the role? And I sort of learned a lot there. And then my next job then was at Sky as a principal engineer again.
Yeah.
And that that really kind of forged a path for me then, because there was a team of principal engineers there. So I was able to kind of work with other principal engineers across different technology stacks and really kind of learn about my role, like what I should be doing, and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I did that for three years, I think, off the top of my head.
Okay.
And then moved on to Stream, where I I was a principal engineer and then got promoted into technical director. So now I'm
Right.
like, a new job title. What does this entail? So
Right.
actually, it's so for me. What I've discovered is I really like the best of both worlds. I love writing code. I love technology. I love hardware. I love everything about it. But I also love the other side, the business side, looking at investment of where we're putting the money. Like, should we expand the team? How do we scale this
Mm.
team? What engineering processes do we need to put in place to be able to scale this thing? What
Nice.
products are we building? What features are we implementing? What's our CI look like? All the kind of bigger initiatives that kind of affect
Right.
multiple squads.
Yeah.
And that's what I've got at Stream. So I'm super happy with my job right now. I get to do
Mm.
both of those things. I mentor the guys. I help them with technical stuff that we're doing. I also make sure that they've got the right progression in place. What is next for each one of those, and then I also get to be in the company meetings about, do we need to scale the iOS team? Like, what's going wrong? Do we need to improve in certain areas? What products are coming next, and all this sort of stuff. So I get this like real hybrid role, which I'm just super happy with at the moment.
Nice. That brings me to this question that you have been, I would not say super frequent, but you have been frequent with changing companies, right? What
Mhm.
has been the reason behind that? Like, what has been your drive behind switching in between those companies? Generally, people do it for better growth, right? I believe there must be this one reason also in one of your reasons that you have. But what are the exact reasons for this?
It's quite common for so basically I was a permanent employee for 2 or 3 years. Then I was a contractor. So I was basically
Okay.
self-employed.
Okay.
So I did that for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And it
Okay.
was that period where I was moving about frequently because essentially all I would do is drop in on a company for 3 to 6 months, build a project, help on some issue, and then
Right.
move on to the next one. So I was very much self-employed. So that's why I was able to move around. But the beauty about that, and at the time I didn't really think about this, was I'm learning so much. Like I worked at so many different companies, all of
Right.
the different ways of doing stuff, different ways of building apps and shipping them across multiple teams and everything else. I was absorbing all this knowledge. And now I'm like, yeah, that was actually really awesome because I managed to learn so many different ways of doing stuff. Whereas, of course, a typical um, thing to do is maybe work at one company every 2 or 3 years, let's say.
Yeah.
So in my time as an iOS engineer, I might have only ever worked at 3 companies, whereas doing the way I have, I've worked at 10 companies, So it's been
Hmm.
really beneficial for that.
Yeah, I'm also of the same kind of breed when it comes to moving, from company to company. And I also agree with you on these lines where you're talking about we get to see a lot of different things when we go to any new company, the way they operate, the way they make their decisions about building something. So we get to know a lot about that. Plus, in your case, I've seen that you have also seen a lot of new cultures, I believe. You
Mhm.
told me that you have been to Spain for some time, to Dubai for some time. So there has
Mhm.
been this geographical shift which might have given you some more perspective about like other regions developers as well, right? Not just
Yeah,
your region oriented. So
yeah,
this is a great exposure, I would say.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Dubai was super interesting because we had the biggest geodiverse team you will have ever seen,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
super awesome, like super awesome. And it was just incredible to watch so many different cultures, different backgrounds, different people all kind of get together and solve this problem that we were dealing
Right.
with. And I was like, wow, this is super awesome. And but you're learning all the time, about how they live, different ways people live. Like you
True.
get all these different learnings, and and that you take that with you. Yes, it might not be
Exactly.
relevant to coding, but you still kind of use that for just social, interactions, for example. So
Like
it's
like you must have tried dates from Dubai, no doubt, right?
it's they're an interesting taste. I must-
Yeah, I don't know anything about Spain, but for Dubai, I knew this. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's great. So, since you have worked with a lot of companies, you might have come across a lot of other technologies as well. Like, not technologies, I would say, a lot of different types of framework, I would say, right? What have been your favorite framework so far in iOS domain?
Framework as in iOS framework, like Coca
Yeah.
framework, or as
Yeah.
in okay.
In general, like
Um,
under the Apple ecosystem, what have been your
yeah.
most favorite frameworks to work with?
Oh, this is really interesting. This is interesting. Yeah,
Do you have 10 names in mind?
it's really hard because it's hard not to forget the most popular. So, for
Yeah,
example, UIKit. I mean, everybody is using UIKit
true.
since day one, and there's a lot of APIs there that I just think about and think, oh yeah, I remember that. Um, the 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 framework I'm currently loving is MetricKit,
Okay.
which is a framework not many people are talking about.
Yeah,
And
I also haven't heard about this.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
okay. And this was released in 2019, which was when I
Okay.
attended the WWDC conference.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it's a little hidden gem. I think it's super powerful.
What is it
It's
called? Can you repeat that?
a metric kit.
Matric. Okay. I'll also take a look since you are saying that it's amazing, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Other
So
than other
yeah,
than Matric, yeah.
over the metric kit, home kit was always good when that was
Mm-hmm.
announced. What you'll find with me is I love to dig into the frameworks people are not really talking about. So
Okay.
when Combine, for example, was released, everybody was all over this, and I was like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And that was it. It's like,
So
and
did you like Combine, or like what are your views about Combine then?
oh yeah, I love reactive programming. So
Okay.
when Combine was released, it was like, yeah, this is awesome. But
Yeah.
I've not written a huge amount of content about Combine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I tend to stick with the frameworks that are quietly announced in the background that nobody ever sees, like Metric
Okay.
Kit, because I think, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this could actually be super useful, super powerful for your app. Whereas Combine, I'm like, yeah, but everyone's writing about Combine,
Right. Right. That's
So
true.
it's, but yeah, I do love
Even
Combine.
even Combine, I think I've seen with Combine, it is also underrated. Not many people
Mm,
use it. People have adopted async await very early than Combine, I would say. People
mm,
who haven't even tried out Combine have gone to async await when it was
yeah.
introduced. So I would say it has been also one of those frameworks which kept there, like which was low key kind of framework that was released, and nobody gave a lot of heat to it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Though I
Yeah.
would say it's quite powerful. Even I love Combine,
Hmm.
but yeah, on the other side, async await is there now, which can possibly beat it. Uh, Maybe.
Yeah.
What are your views on this, like async await versus Combine?
Yeah, I don't I think for me there would be different use cases. So I think depending on the situation, um,
Right.
in terms of like what you're building, in terms of the
Right.
complexity of the app and things. So I would my advice would be not to kind of dive fully into Combine. If you're like new to iOS development, I just for me, I'd be like, you don't need to just learn everything about Combine. Because sometimes it's often these words are shouted. Oh, you must learn Combine. You must learn Swift
Yeah.
UI. You must learn all of this stuff. And I'm
Right.
thinking, just build a small app. You know,
Yeah, because that is the
build
objective.
just build a small app that displays a list of apples or
Maybe,
something
yeah.
like a shopping
Yeah,
trolley
just
app,
a basic application. Yeah.
a basic app, and that will be far more beneficial than kind of reading pages and pages and pages of Combine, in my
That's
opinion.
true. That's true, provided if that person's experience level is in between 0 to 2. I think they
Mm,
don't need to get into Combine and or any other framework for that matter. They should focus more on building their fundamentals and
yeah,
getting used to with API callings, table views, collection view, and all of those
yeah.
things in UI kit. For Swift UI, that's a different game altogether. Like this happened with me when I got very comfortable with UI kit. Swift UI was introduced, and I was like, why? Though I appreciate the way it has
Yeah.
solved a lot of problems with some inbuilt problems in itself, but yeah, it has simplified things for us.
Hmm.
Uh,
And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess you've also been through this change, a similar change to what I did 10 years ago, where you kind of learning Objective C and then the first Swift. And I guess
yeah,
you've done the same, right? You've learned UIKit library,
and yeah, it was
and
more of
then
like same to me. I was feeling very like it was the high time when I was feeling okay. Now I know most of the things in UI kit. I can handle that.
Mhm.
And the year 2019 Swift UI was introduced. I was like, okay, let's see
Yeah,
this.
I
How has
think
been
my
your experience with this? Yeah.
I think my advice for people is, especially if you're brand new, I think just learn Swift, learn
Yeah.
the Swift language. You don't even need just download Xcode or open Swift Playgrounds, whatever it might be, and just learn the basics of Swift. So, variables, constants, for loops, all the syntax.
Right.
Get familiar with Swift, and then start thinking about the what I would call the platform specific stuff. The Coca
True.
frameworks, UI kit, Swift UI, Foundation, you know,
Yeah.
and start incorporating what you've learned there with Swift, the fundamentals into the calling into APIs, learning a view lifecycle. View did load, view did
True.
appear, view will
Very
appear,
important. Yeah, very
and
important for anyone who is starting off.
yeah, and then build it from there, and tap into the different frameworks that you require at the time. So, for example, you're building a table view. Okay, you need to
Right.
delve into UIKit and
Right.
view some stuff there. Okay, now I'm gonna present a new view controller. I need to know about how a navigation stack works within an iOS app, and
True.
start delving into the bits you actually need and build on the learning from there, rather than thinking,
Yeah.
wow, I need to learn all of this stuff as well as Swift, as well as the frameworks, as well as the platform.
I've seen people stuck with things like a core ML kit or some other kit, which sounds fancy, right? And I would not say each one of them are like the same, but I have seen with some of them that they don't know the very basics of iOS
Mm,
yet, and they're trying out maybe core ML, right? So there
yeah.
is no point in jumping onto that bandwagon before knowing the basics in place,
Yeah.
right? I,
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
like if you don't know how to show up the push notification that you get on your application and what in which method you should actually write that logic.
Hmm.
Knowing push notification doesn't make sense in itself if you don't know
Hmm.
where to do it in your app
Yeah.
delegate, right? So so those core fundamentals, I think, uh, becomes a sideline thing. People simply neglect that and jump onto again those kits, X kit,
Hmm.
Y kit, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay. So what are your plans, Adam, with your career now, since You have seen and you have experienced a lot of things. What next for you? I know you are doing Swiftly Rush, which is your own blog. You are organizing this amazing conference called Swift Leads. Any other plans or thinking to make them big?
Yeah, I kind of I kind of want to stabilize at the moment. I want to do more conference talks, so I've applied to be a speaker at quite a few conferences this year. So there's more to come on that.
Okay.
Other than that, I kind of just want to stabilize. I want to keep publishing new content on my website.
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing what I'm doing in my career. I'm absolutely loving working for Stream. The company's super awesome. The product's super awesome. Having a super awesome time there. So I'm really enjoying my job. And other than that, obviously building on Swift Leads and expanding. We're projecting about 200 attendees this year, which has been explosive growth. I mean, I had
Nice.
no idea I would get this many people, which is
I
just
saw, I think you have changed your venue this time, right?
we have, yeah,
It was a huge like a conference hall or something, more of like a
yes,
auditorium.
yeah. So we had a theater
Theater.
last year,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it was basically full.
Full
it was
already?
it was full, and the networking space there was not very much room. People were like squeezed in, and we just said, yeah, we're going to have to expand into a bigger venue because we're going to get more and more people. So we've managed to find a venue. It's not too far from the previous one, but it's double the size. So it's
Hmm.
double the seating capacity in the actual venue, and the actual
Right.
networking space is massive, like huge, really big place. So yeah, I'm super honored actually that people enjoyed it. It's like deeply heartwarming for me. And like I said earlier, there's something truly special about in-person conferences that
Uh-huh.
you just cannot recreate online. And for me, you just can't recreate it. And there were two things that happened during Swift Leads last year.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is somebody who had a job, wasn't an iOS developer, wasn't even a software engineer, had just a just a different job,
Okay. Okay.
and they wanted to do a bit of iOS development, so they attended the conference, and a month
Wow.
later, they landed their first iOS job, and
Wow.
the person messaged me and said, "Thank you so much for the conference. It
Yeah, that's
inspired
powerful, I think.
it inspired me that much. I applied for my first job and I got it, and I was like,
Wow.
wow, that's and it's moments like that where I'm like, yeah, that's why I do this. That
Yeah.
this is why
That's the
it's
reason
it's
behind. Yeah.
that's the reason, because it's non-profit. Nobody's making any money from Swift Leads. Everybody's a
Wow.
volunteer, including me. All the money goes back into the conference itself. There is no profit at all, and it's for one reason only, and it's for those moments that to help the community, help people,
I think
elevate.
that's a great initiative. I didn't know that it is a completely non-profit kind of conference. Like I
Yeah,
didn't know the math behind it, but now that I know it, I think that's a great initiative overall, right? You're
yeah,
completely purely doing it for the community itself.
yeah. There's nobody other than companies who are providing equipment. The venue, for
Right.
example, obviously charges money, so
Right.
all the money we get goes to pay for that. And if there's anything left
Okay.
over, then it goes into next year, and we'll
Yeah.
buy more stuff or buy whatever we need to buy.
Wow.
There's nobody at all making profit, which you know speaks volumes, right? There's a reason
Yeah.
why that is, and it's because it's for the community.
That's awesome. There has been one thing in my mind that I forgot to ask you. I asked you like before the session began, but I would like to shoot that question again to you, which is you must have seen in the community or maybe in the developer space itself. I would not talk about the other spaces. I think it will become more generic then. But there has been this imposter syndrome in many people these days. They also talk about it very vocally on Twitter or maybe some other platforms. What do you think can be a possible solution for it? And what has been your personal experience with this? Like, have you ever felt like that when you started off yourself as an iOS developer? And do you still have it now that you are, at a stage where you can say, ki, okay, these are just kids. I know that.
I I've always had it,
Mhm.
and honestly, this is my opinion. Anyone who says they don't, I don't think is telling the honest truth. Um,
True.
I don't think anything we do in life will always think we can do better, or we always think somebody else could do better. It's about training the mind, training the mindset of knowing
Right.
that you can do this, and somebody will get value. Writing content is biggest imposter syndrome ever. I can write an article, I'll read it and I'll just think that's nonsense. Like nobody's going to get any value from this. I'll read it again and I'll have another perspective. So I've kind of just trained my mind to just proofread content, trust that I've delivered something that somebody will get value, and
Yeah.
push it out. But yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, even throughout my whole career, I've always questioned, is this the right thing to do? Would somebody else do this? What if they were doing this? Would they do it better? I think everybody has this
In
mindset
some sort. Yeah.
of some sort, and at
Yeah.
different levels, right? I don't pick up day-to-day engineering tasks, so I'm not writing, uh, you know, 8 hours of code a day than I used to be. So my
Hmm.
my imposter syndrome for code is not so high because I don't do a huge amount of it. But of course, I'm managing people, I'm mentoring people, so I have
Right.
huge imposter syndrome about, do they like me? do
Ah,
they do they trust me? Do they think
do they,
I'm capable of this job?
yeah. Do they think that I
So
know
it's,
much about the
yeah,
thing that I'm telling them?
exactly. So it's just different, right? It's just a different imposter syndrome. Back 5 years ago, I'd
Yeah.
be thinking, what I've got to raise this pull request. Do they like it? Are they going to write some nasty comments on GitHub? Now I'm thinking, I'm not worried about GitHub. I'm worried about, do they actually like me? do, you know, do
It's
they
yeah.
do they
It's
do
beyond the
they
software
trust?
level now.
Exactly. So it's, honestly, I think everyone goes through it. I would trust your instinct in a lot of things. Again, I've read some of my content before. I thought, yes, I can improve this area for sure. I've always done that, and I'll improve it. But I've learned and trained my mind to just push stuff out. You've just got to ship it. And actually, the 1 week cycle for me works because I can't dwell on an article for more than a week. It's got to go. It's got to be shipped. So that's
Right.
kind of how I look at it.
Nice. That's awesome. What are the
How about
three?
how about you? You tell us about imposter syndrome? Do you suffer?
Yeah, I do. I would be lying if I would say no. No, I don't feel like having that. But yes, as you said, that these like this syndrome is at different stages in life, like at a different level in different stages of life. So currently, I don't feel like it is impacting me. I feel like it is a part of life, right? I
Hmm.
have learned to live with it, and I know the solution to it as well, right?
Hmm.
But it is still there. Earlier, it was like I was very upset with the things that I was doing. I was thinking that maybe I'm wasting my time. I should do more. I was looking at other people, thinking they know better than me, even at the same experience. So what am I? What am I doing then, right? So from that stage to now, there have been a lot of improvements, and I'm on that journey where I would say, okay, maybe it's gone. Maybe it's gone. So
Yeah,
I don't know, will it be like gone forever or not? But I have learned how to tackle with that.
yeah. And I would say the biggest driver of imposter syndrome is looking at other people,
Right.
and I the only reason I look at other people is either because I'm going to communicate with them, or I'm reading their article because I'm actually
Yeah.
interested in what they have to say about this topic. Other
Right.
than that's it. Like I don't care how many followers they've got. I don't care how many
That's
tweets
the
they
way.
send out per day. You know, I deal with my own and how I want to do things.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of deal with it. So yeah, maybe there's some.
That's so true. Even if you look at my followers, you would think that like somebody of having these many followers that I have, like they are very limited. Then he or she would not be even try to do something which can contribute to the community, thinking that okay, I have not too many followers, right? But I
Mhm.
think it's all about how you perceive things, how you think about these things, how you think about creating impact. It can be done even with one follower, and there have been people who don't do it even at 1 lakh followers. So that's a
Yeah,
completely different story. Also, I think you would agree with this, that we all have different timelines, right, of achievements or success or growth in life.
hmm
So I have also got kind of understood this, that okay, it's okay to be at this level where I am currently. And there have been times where I feel like okay, maybe I am now ahead of some other people who I look up to sometimes.
hmm
So it
yeah,
keeps changing. It depends on like where you are on your journey itself,
yeah,
right? Earlier I was more of competitive, now I'm more of like collaborative. I think
yeah,
competition gives a boost to these kind of things, in my opinion. Once I've understood that I don't need to, even if I'm looking at somebody else progress, growth, or whatever, which is making me think that what I doing. Now I think of it as if, okay, this person is doing great. Why don't I learn from him or her,
hmm
right?
yeah,
So it has changed to that level now.
yeah. That kind of goes back to my earlier point about where you are in terms of your career. Like, the
Right.
first couple of years, you're very much like learning. You get to that peak of that is it. I know everything, and
Right.
it's like a maturity model, and then you kind of get over that peak, and you very much
True.
realize actually I'll never know everything, and I want to collaborate more with people rather than compete to get the next promotion or the next pay rise or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think you get to that stage and then you just kind of want to collaborate more with people and mentor and support one another. And actually, in my opinion, that the people that are mentoring, the people that are supporting, the people that are just um, doing this in the background, if that makes sense, they're not kind
Yeah,
of shouting up too high about this stuff. Is the ones to really retain. They're the talent. They're the ones that are sharing the knowledge. They're collaborating.
true.
They're elevating other engineers. That's that's the superstar. That's the people to
That's
keep.
true. That's true. It depends a lot on our company, right? Like
Mm,
who are those 5 or 6 friends we have, or maybe colleagues we have, because that impacts a lot, like at our psychological level, because we sit with them on a daily basis. So if that is not like positive, like if that energy is not coming positive to our side, eventually we will also tend to behave like that, right?
hmm Yeah.
Though again it depends, I would not say that again it happens in every case, because
hmm
it again depends on person to person, I would say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's my take on this imposter syndrome, or maybe anything else that we can call it. What advice would you like to give, Adam, to your 18-year-old self? This has been a traditional question that I keep asking people in between. In some episodes I forgot asking. Today I remember very vividly that okay, I need to ask this question to Adam now.
Oh, that is a good question. I would probably whisper to myself and just say, slow down a little bit. I
Okay.
think I don't know. I was very much always sprinting. I was always chasing the next thing. I was always learning that next bit of information. I mentioned to you earlier about my curiosity, my inquisitive brain.
Right.
It's always going 1,000 miles per hour. Um,
Wow.
so I'd probably just whisper to myself and just say, "Slow down. This is a marathon."
Right. Yeah, in the
Yeah,
beginning we think like, okay, it's a sprint, so we do our best in the shortest span of time. But yeah, it's more of like a reality, right? Reality
yeah.
check.
Just take it easy. You've got all of these years to go. Just
Right.
kind of slow down. We don't need to know everything right away.
Right.
Um, have more holidays.
Have more holidays. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So have you started practicing that now? Like you mentioned that have more holidays. So are you at a stage where you feel like I need to have a chill life plus that hustle life that I used to have in a
Yeah.
collaborative way?
Yeah. I used to never take holidays and time off, but especially when COVID hit around the world, as everyone knows, it kind of shocked me, actually, shocked everyone, I think, to kind of have a bit of a reality check and kind of,
Right.
life is far more important. Family is
True.
more important. Health is more important than anything
That's true.
that we do day to day. So yeah, it was a reality check for me. I kind of for sure took a step back. I managed to work from home, so I take my children to school every morning. I can wrap up and go for dinner with them, whereas previously I'd be commuting for like one
That's
hour,
sweet.
2 hours per day. So I've definitely had a bit of a reality check, take a step back, spend more time with family, and you know have those kind of precious moments. So yeah, for sure, in the last two years, I've definitely sort of took a bit more of a step back.
Wow. I think this happened with a lot of people. I think they realize that what are their life priorities, right? Because
Hmm.
we kind of make a illusion in our mind that this is our priority before like realizing like this pandemic made us realize that what are the actual priorities that you should have in life rather than that illusion that you already had in place.
Yeah.
This happened to me as well. I was more into doing things all the time. Now I think my health is also important, so I should take out that time for my health no matter what happens. Maybe I need to cancel a certain meeting, but I have to go to maybe outside or to gym to have that me time with me.
Yeah.
So with family also that happened. I don't used to give that much time to my family before. Now I have realized, okay, it's just a matter of time that you are gone from this world.
Hmm.
So so why not give back to your family, give them some time. I think that's the best that we can do, right? Giving somebody our time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Totally, I totally agree. And yeah, but I think it's so important to to turn the laptop off and you know do what you enjoy doing, whether it be going for a walk, a run, spending time with family, or whatever hobbies you're into. But yeah, for sure, I think it's super important we do this.
Right. Earlier I used to make goals that okay, for these many months I'll not go anywhere, I'll not have parties and all with my friends, and I'll just focus on this target. Okay. Now I make plans where maybe if that earlier plan was for 6 months, then I make break it into 3 months. Like for 3 months I'll do this, then I'll take a break, I'll go on a holiday, maybe meet my friends and do every possible thing that that we can do together. Then I'll go back to that hustle life and keep on doing it for the next 3 months. So like this change has taken place after not after, but yeah, during this pandemic, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice idea. Like to have those kind of blocked periods of work and then kind of having the downtime. My problem, especially as I get older, I'm kind of, if I have 2 or 3 or 4 days off, I've really got to kind of kick myself to get back to
Get back to work,
to
right?
get back to, well, not just work, but just doing the articles and doing all the
Right.
contributions. I've really kind of got to fire myself up more than I used to do.
All right. With that said, I think we can wrap up this episode here. It was great talking to you, Adam. I think we talked about a lot of different things, be it technical, philosophical, some other side of it, like leadership. I don't know in which domain it comes, and a lot about your life. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I don't know about the other people who will be watching it and who are currently watching it, but I know about myself that I learned a lot today. And yeah, I hope, Adam, that you liked this podcast today, this conversation today. I hope I made you comfortable. Since we are speaking for the very first time, I don't feel like that I'm speaking to you for the very first time. Right after like our 10 minutes of conversation in the very beginning, right after that, I felt like, okay, I know this person already. And now it's a friend's conversation that we are having.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. Same as well. It's been I just love the name of your show, to be honest. The Mayank Show is like amazing. But yeah, I mean, thank you, and thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this for the community. I think it's really special, and yeah, thanks so much, and see you on Twitter, I guess.
Thanks for all the kind words that you just said.
No
And
problem.
yeah, one more time, like, it was a pleasure having you on the show, Adam. It was I didn't know that how would you respond to to my message, because I think it was the very first time that I messaged you, and you were kind enough to accept the invitation and come to the podcast. So thanks once again for that. I hope that we can have more conversations like these, maybe in depth next time on some other topic, because I think like we have this tuning of having a conversation going in a right direction.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Thank you so much once again, and that's all for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.